The question gets at the polar vortex impact and the argument that because of the very bad performance of the generating resources, we can't. And let me try to fill in the blank here. So we can't mess up our generation mix too much, or we will jeopardize reliability. Let me do that one first. So what about that? Well, the generating, a lot of the owners of generation had cheaped out in maintenance and staffing over the years because while they had the obligation to perform in the capacity market, they found if they didn't spend money to make sure that they could, it didn't hurt them. And then they got caught short last year. So we had the system, the whole grid almost crashed, really close. And we had 22% of all the generation fail. Now the typical expected rate was about 7%. So you can see it was just horrible. So folks seized on that and said, oh, well look, when it gets really bad, we have terrible failures of the generating resource, and so we can't do compliance things that will push some of this generation out because look at the risk. Well, this year, under the same conditions, we had 10% failure, not 22% failure. So the generators learned how to keep their units, to make their units turn on and run under the same conditions as last year. Now, let me just say, the electric industry is kind of a unique beast, and nobody ever apologized for almost turning lights out on the East Coast last year, but that's the way they are. And so the answer to the critique that we can't mess with our generation mix where the lights are going to go out under these horrible conditions is no, not really. I mean, look what happened. 22% last year, 10% this year. It's not as bad as you thought. There's still a risk. And in fact, PJM plans for that. Everybody who buys capacity, that is, Duquesne and First Energy and Direct Energy and so on, have to buy a 15% extra over their load. So if they have all you folks and their load is 1 megawatt, they have to buy 1.15 megawatts because things break. Accidents happen. You got to be ready to deal with those. And so it's in the planning parameters already to oversupply so you're prepared for emergencies. So the answer is it's nowhere what it looked like last year. And so if your claim is we're gonna turn the lights off if we do Clean Power Plan compliance, the answer is let's work on the details, but the answer is no. I'm sorry, you had a second question? Or did I get it all?
Well, I mean, the basic question, the follow-up to that relates to the Clean Power Plan and the assumption that we're going to eliminate certain fossil fuels. And so it's a follow-up to what you just said. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm actually just going to build off. I'll answer that and build off of Dan's answer to the previous question. So guess what got called at almost record levels in the polar vortex in PJM and, I should say, ERCOT, and helped keep the lights on? Demand response, right? So you got a bunch of these technologies out there that provide these other benefits that, by the way, can be used under the Clean Power Plan for emission reductions that help keep the lights on. We just did a major report, hired Brattle Group to do a major report. Now they are the modeler du jour of ERCOT, a bunch of the utilities. They're a very conservative shop and an analytic shop. And what we asked them to do is actually do a review of an initial reliability report that was done by NERC, which is the body that's federally recognized. It's staffed by the utilities. They've done an initial reliability assessment of the Clean Power Plan. And they had come up with some criticism like that. They had specific concerns that they laid out. But they hadn't done any kind of deep modeling at that point. They're actually going to be doing another assessment with some modeling coming out. And so we had Brattle do a report to provide input on their first assessment as they build up towards their second assessment. And Brattle's basic conclusion is there's not a reliability problem here. So there's now, and they on a very detailed basis. So NERC had outlined some specific concerns. So we might have to use more renewables than people think, than EPA is modeling in its actual BSER determination. And Brattle looked at the levels of renewables that would be potentially be required under the Clean Power Plan, even under worst case scenarios, and found that the levels of renewables that would be required are below levels that are already integrated in grids around the world. So that are, all those grids are managed reliably. So that was one piece. Another piece was the gas electric interface. And whether, so the critique here was, well, the Clean Power Plan might force you to use a lot more gas, and gas is used for other things like home heating as well. And so what if you can't get the gas, and some regions like New England have had some challenges with that interface in the past. And their basic conclusion was that is an issue that has been recognized. And now there's a bunch of planning that's underway by a bunch of these, by PJM, ISO New England, and others. Like ISO New England created a pay-for-performance program, which basically encourages gas supply to be guaranteed. So there are a bunch of new technology options that folks have been looking at, things like gas demand response, to help. And basically, Brattle concluded that, is the Clean Power Plan going to make that concern better? Is that going to make that issue better? No, but we don't foresee an issue, given the timeline and flexibilities here, of the Clean Power Plan creating any additional challenge on that front. So they kind of went point by point, because we wanted to know if everybody wants a reliable system, and we wanted to know if their assessment would be that the Clean Power Plan would create a problem, and they concluded no.